Is now 5:51. We want to call this meeting to order. Sandy Transit Advisory Board, March 17th, 2021. And excused absences, we have Bernice Tynan, Karen Topliff, and Joseph Lowell. And have not heard from our city council representative, who is our Mayor Stan Pulliam. So let's go with the reading of the prior meeting minutes. Does anyone have corrections, changes, additions in having reviewed those? It's our meeting from December. Seems like about 5 light years ago. Okay, so can we have a motion, please, to accept the meeting minutes from our December 19th, 2020 meeting? Anybody?
Motion to approve.
I say we.
All right. Any opposition? Okay, that is passed. And then also to the agenda for tonight's meeting, any changes or additions that you see there that we need to address before moving forward? Okay. I move that we accept the agenda as presented for tonight's meeting. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Chris. Agenda for this evening's meeting's been approved. Actually, any opposition? I think by virtue of not having corrections or additions, I think we're there. Take it away, masterful leader or mistress.
Okay. We don't have public here, so I'm assuming there's no public comments. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to do a lot of screen sharing tonight so that you're not staring at my face. All right. So as you guys know, I am part of the OTA, Oregon Transit Association board, currently the president. And during session, we watch various bills that are in front of the legislators about that we believe could have an impact on transit if they were to go forward. So I don't know that we've ever actually shared this list. I'm not going to go over everything. There's a lot of bills that are being watched. There's just 2 that I'm going to highlight for us tonight. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So the first one I'm going to highlight is this House Bill 2139. I don't know if I can even move my, I don't want to save this. I just want to look at it. There we go. This actually has been moved forward with the recommendation to pass. It is a grant program that opens money for transportation for veterans for in rural areas. I am not sure if we will be considered rural enough after a conversation I had with a colleague today, but I do plan to look into this. We do currently transport veterans. Sometimes we are transporting veterans 2 to 3 times a week to the VA. Sometimes it's only once a week. It depends on obviously the number of veterans in town and what appointments they have. So we currently use our elderly and disabled funding through our ed program to transport veterans. It would be great if we could get some funding through this grant and have, maybe a shuttle that runs to the VA either when needed, or a lot of times I know the VA will schedule shuttles that are maybe in a certain community every Tuesday, for example. So we may reach out to our veterans that we know are in town and look at their ridership patterns and come up with some sort of schedule, or we may do it on demand depending. But so that is one bill that I believe will pass and will continue a grant for that type of transportation. The other bill that I'm going to point out is House Bill 2482. And here we go. This is primarily aimed or created with TriMet in mind, but obviously if it passes will impact all of us. And it basically makes removing passengers on public transit by the police not possible. So it makes it where it's not a crime, and you cannot ask the police to remove someone from your vehicle. And this does include people who are evading fares as well. So I'm not sure where this will go. We're watching it pretty closely, and if it starts to look like it has action, then we will probably, what tends to happen is we write letters and then send people to testify for or against bills, depending on what the board has decided. In this case, obviously we would lean towards being opposed to this bill.
Can you explain, sorry, Andy, could you explain what some of the basis is for why this legislation was introduced?
Yeah, so they're trying to remove the criminality piece, or the involvement of police officers with transit. From what I understand, the argument is that they have a right to be on the vehicle because it's public transportation, and they don't want law enforcement to be part of transit enforcement. When they created it, I think they thought, that was kind of a TriMet issue, but it would impact us as well, because while we handle most things administratively, meaning our drivers kick them off and then I send them a letter and I tell them that they're excluded, and it's all, in our city code that this is the process that we follow, and they generally get a work plan. However, if they ignore that exclusion, we do turn to the police. So we also use the police to help us regulate our passengers. So the intent, again, was to decriminalize the behavior. Say homeless people want to ride around on a bus. They're trying to prevent that from being a crime. But it does create real problems for transit being able to manage our passengers when we need to. And those are the only two. There's a lot on this list, but those are the only two that I think really could have an impact on SAM and Mount Hood Express for that matter. But as you can see, there's a very long list, but a lot of these don't go anywhere. So. All right, so unless I have questions, since we are on federal and state legislation, one more thing, and Chris, you're probably very aware of this, but I just want to make the board aware that, and let me share my screen again. The federal government, or FTA, has put some real teeth behind mask wearing. So they sent out some information and signs such as these for people to post in their buses. But one of the things that they've done to give real teeth to the fact that they want masks on public transportation is if they find, they've tied our federal funding to mask wearing. So if they find an agency that is not enforcing face mask on board, they can remove your federal funding. And as you guys know, we are very heavily federally funded. So when we are being the mask police, especially myself and Muna and Nancy, who are in the building with the drivers and reminding them that they, need a mask on, and that when they're driving, there has to be a mask and all the passengers have to wear a mask. It's just not an option. And we're not just being, crabby or, deciding this policy ourselves. It is truly not an option for us to not have people wearing masks on the vehicles.
I have something to say about that. I'm just not negatively, just to educate and bring aware. For an example, Joseph cannot wear a mask and drive his wheelchair because he cannot see his feet. So he's basically driving around blind, which is completely unsafe, not just for anybody around him that he could hit, but for himself, of him catching his foot on something and breaking his leg, or his chair hits something and jolts him and injures him some other way. He cannot wear a mask and drive his power wheelchair because he can't see far enough down past, he can't see his feet whatsoever. The mask rides right up to his eyes. So how are we addressing something, say, of this nature for somebody who wants to ride on public transportation?
So Sam, we have said that if someone approaches us about an ADA issue, or about, that it is an ADA, they can't wear one for ADA reasons, we will send it through our ADA enrollment process. Just like we would do for someone who can't use the fixed route. It does create complication. We have not had that happen, by the way. So, real life, we haven't truly figured this out yet. We have, it's very clear from the federal guides of what is allowed and what is not allowed. I don't even think face shields are allowed without a mask. Muna, do you remember? I think face shields are not an option either.
If I remember correctly, it said that you had to wear a mask with a face shield. But I'm wondering if in that point, if you had the mask lower rather than completely over your entire face. To be real honest, I'm not sure. We'd have to go back over it, but I don't think, the only exception that I remember seeing was if someone was hearing impaired, you
Right.
do something so that that person would be able to see your mouth. But that,
So Roxy, I think, just to use your example, and we're all learning in real time, but I think if Joseph called me and needed to use transit, we would have a couple of options, and probably what I would say in working with Joseph is, obviously to move your chair, you can't have a mask. So let's not have a mask while you board transit so that you can board safely. And we would probably keep the driver at a slight distance unless he needs assistance. And then we would ask that he put the mask on once he's safely secured inside the vehicle. Now, again, I haven't had to wrangle around the few people that have said, you know, they have a problem with a mask because of breathing. They have been okay with the request that they just have something covering their face. So, you know, it not necessarily being a mask, but this was pre-federal guidelines. So honestly, I think it's something that we as an agency would work with the passenger and try to find something that works.
I figured that we would do such as what you're saying, but my question was, I'm just using Joseph as an example because he is a person with a disability and it's not an ADA thing for him. It is, he literally cannot see his feet. That is like putting a blindfold on and saying, drive this car, but don't hit any other cars. Don't crash into anything. I mean, it's just, it's not feasible, but yet is it really worth, and I know we wouldn't do that, but I know that there's other agencies and other transit forms that would say, well, you'll have to make special accommodations to make this happen, which then would make him have to do all this extra work just to be able to get on the bus, to be able to go to the zoo, or, you know, to get on the bus to go to Gresham to go shopping. Or I'm just throwing things out there that Joseph hasn't gone anywhere because of this reason. He cannot
Right.
see his feet.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's complicated, and I'm sure there will be agencies that that may create more barriers or try to find, as you said, special accommodations. And I think it's something that we just all have to take case by case. And it, unfortunately, it is what it is. I mean, it's just like we have to ask all the questions about whether or not you know, just schedule a ride, whether or not they have symptoms of COVID. And if they do, or for example, if they're going for a COVID test, we can't provide that ride.
I know that I'm not trying to be a stick. I would
Yep.
presume that we would work with whatever individual needed to, but since it's coming from the federal government, what I'm trying to say is that they didn't think about, before mandating or attaching funds, I should say, to an agency about wearing a mask, that their rules can be a little hardcore for those that can't touch their face, can't wear a mask for asthma or whatever breathing issues they may or may not have, or this, that, the other. So, I mean, I'm very grateful that we here are willing to work, but there are some agencies that out there, I know for a fact we have ran into once. We did go out one time and it was, let's just say, overly challenging, and Joseph will not do it again. So unfortunately, he is pretty much bound home because of the mask mandate and whatnot, which says what for his, you know, stability of life, that he can't go anywhere, basically, you know. So anyway, sorry, I'll get off my soapbox. I mean,
No, I totally get it. I mean, everything about COVID, and I'm not looking at the screen because I'm looking at the FTA's guidance, because I'm probably not giving you a well-rounded answer about, you know, what can you do if, because they did think through a lot of it. And as a transit agency, you know, just the counter side, not dismissing Joseph's situation, but bus operators in Sandy have had many instances of people who are hostile and refuse to wear a mask. We've had to have the police involved over a woman requesting a gentleman coming down from the mountain to wear a mask, and he was going to shoot her in the head with a bullet because, you know, all liberals, blah, 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 blah. Like we do need the help of having, you know, it's kind of like the ADA service animal. We need the help, not just as a recommendation, but the backup for these operators to be able to say, you know, this isn't, I'm not doing this because I feel like you need to wear a mask today. This agency could lose their funding. And most transit agencies are, probably all transit agencies are, I mean, we are here for the ADA population. So I would imagine they would do everything possible to help someone who had a problem wearing a mask. But it does help us to say, we might not even exist if we just let you on this bus without a mask. Most people get, you know, the idea of funding being yanked if you don't do it. So. I'm sure we could talk about COVID all day long, but let's not. I lost my agenda because I went to look. And Roxy, do you want me to send you the link to the FTA's questions about wearing a mask, or does anyone want to see what that looks like?
Yes, please. That would be great to have just for educational purposes. And I mean, I know we are all taking this day by day. We've never dealt with COVID before. And so we're all learning moving forward. And I totally get that. I hope I wasn't coming across as cross or angry or frustrated. It's just the little things that when you don't live a certain life, you just don't think about. And that's okay because you don't live that life. So it's just things that to educate and to maybe bring up and maybe get people to think on a different level sometimes when they're putting in a mandate.
Yeah, no, I don't think anybody thought you were coming across as angry or anything like that. Especially those of us who have known you and Joseph for a while. We're all on the side of educating ourselves about the world other people have to, you know, navigate in, and being mindful of how to do that. So thank you. All right, so I lost my agenda. There it is. If everybody's good, I'm gonna move on to needs-based grant awards. I see nods, okay. I'm gonna make this super quick and just tell you that you guys know that we did get some funding through the CARES Act, not the, I must have these open already because they're coming up as, here we go. So so we did get about $395,000 through CARES Act funding that was formula. They, and this was funding that was shared across rural agencies. They did have money left after dispersing through the first formula distribution, and agencies could apply for more funding based on need. So I did, I believe the county did as well. Teresa, I'm happy to let you jump in there too if you want to, but I just want to let you guys know that we were successful. We did get everything that we asked for, which was an additional $100,000, which is primarily for fares recovery. As you all know, we have not collected fares for a year, so that's around $80,000 for us alone, not taking into account our payroll tax has decreased, our STIF funding has decreased and will decrease for the next biennium. We also asked for $90,000 to add a vehicle to our fleet. What's happened is due to restrictions on the vehicles, we have to send more vehicles out. For example, we typically would do more ride sharing on our elderly and disabled program, but it's just the small MVs. So we're putting one person in instead of 2 or 3. So we have been using 15 a lot. We did Meals on Wheels for about 9 months, I believe it was, Monday through Thursday, and we used 15, which 15 is the small Ford Escape hybrid. It's a 2005 or 2006, I believe. And it's not usually put in service. It's usually a vehicle that we use for driver shift changes. If the ops manager needs to run out and meet somebody. It is a 4-wheel drive that was purchased for when we get the snow and ice, so that we can pick somebody up that a larger vehicle can't get to, but maybe an SUV can. So we applied for $90,000 for an extra vehicle to send out as a sweeper vehicle. And as things open, hopefully we will reach capacity on our buses and need to send out an additional vehicle to pick people up at peak times, and $75,000 to replace the Ford Escape. Hopefully those are high numbers. But as we all know, especially the ADA vehicles are very expensive. And then by the time you wrap them, get cameras on board, etc., they're pretty expensive. So we were awarded that funding, and I don't have the contract yet to tell you how long that contract will be, but I plan to use this money by December of this year.
And the county applied for CARES needs-based funding as well. One of the biggest challenges for us has been lost revenue as it relates to fares. Fares make up about 15% of our budget. We're substantially dependent on fares. And between the reduction in ridership and then not charging fares, where essentially what it boils down to is our costs have remained the same or increased in the world of COVID, because we're continuing to run for the most part the same level of service, but we're collecting much less fare revenue. So that's had a huge impact on our service model. We've put in extra runs on weekends to try to get more people up the mountain. Particularly folks who are trying to get back and forth who are commuters. So we've been putting extra service on the road. So we asked for some funding for that. We had some funding, have also asked for funding for COVID related supplies and safety upgrades. So things like driver barriers that we just put on some of our new buses. And then finally, we also applied for an additional vehicle and some funding. It's our hope to add some additional services onto the village shuttle, since that seems to be a really much needed, kind of local transit that serves the residents in that area. So we're going to be looking toward that over the next few weeks and see what we can possibly do to add some service, a little bit of extra service in and help out. So we too are definitely positively impacted by the CARES money that's been coming down the pike. It's really preserved the service for us, because if we hadn't gotten that money, we would have had to put some huge service cuts in place just to keep afloat during this time. So.
Yeah, thank you, Teresa. CARES Act funding has been a real saver of SAM service as well, especially, Sam has put out a lot of extra hours, especially recently, just cleaning vehicles. In the beginning, we had drivers doing it at the end of each run, and we still have that, but we've also hired additional staff to clean every bus stop, the transit center, the buses as they come through every 4 hours. So between the cost of buying the equipment to disinfect buses and putting in germ guards, which we'll talk about later, and hand sanitizers and et cetera, our expenses have really gone up while our revenue has really gone down. So we did just get an email that we are getting more CARES Act formula funds again, but I will share that at a later point when I know a little more, but it sounds like it will be added to next biennium's funding. I'm going to shift us right into STIF and STF because during January and February, we went through the STF funding process, which is the 5310 elderly and disabled funding, federal funding award grant awards, and STF, which, as you know, is our state funding. And we also put our STIF plan in front of the Clackamas County Committee. So we have to create a whole separate STIF committee, and they meet twice to approve what we plan to do with STIF funding. And I know before even going to that, I come to you all to make sure that you felt positive about what we plan to do, and you agreed. But here is our STIF plans, and the county is in here as well. Actually, all Clackamas County providers are in here, so you'll be able to see what is happening with STIF funds. As I said, we did get even in this plan, we actually had a reduction in what was expected to come through from the payroll tax at the end of the plan we're currently in. And so the funding going into the next plan is a little bit lower as well. So we aren't seeing an increase in funding for STIF. Let's see. So these are Sandy's projects. As you guys know, we added a run to Sam Gresham, Sam Estacada, and 2 runs to the Sandy Shopper, Monday through Friday for Sam Gresham, Monday through Saturday for Estacada, and Monday through Friday for the Shopper. We will continue to do that. We're not going to cut any service. So that is the $163,560 for keeping that continuation on those 3 routes for the next 2 years. We added admin cost in the last grant. We did not have any admin cost, and since then we have found out, for example, that we have to have this program audited separately from, I mean, it's audited as part of our program, but then it has its own separate audit. We pay an independent auditor to do that audit. That was $9,000 for Sandy for this one program. Then TriMet turns around and does some expense testing, et cetera, as well. So I won't get into that, but we're working on changing our current agreement with TriMet, or at least the language in the next agreement going into this to help reduce some of that duplication. And I'm sure in the next 3 months, I will be coming to you to let you know how that's going. But right now we're kind of in the beginning of it, so it's not really pertinent at the moment. But anyway, so $37,000 is just to cover cost. If we have to send staff members to meetings, we can include that time. If we spend time planning or implementing STIF projects, we can charge that time to this. If we send people out to survey only on STIF projects, we could charge that time. And of course, we can pay for the audit. We have a Safe Routes to School, very small, $5,000, because we partnered with the planning department to say that if they got a Safe Routes to School grant, we would partner with them and put in $5,000 of our own funding to help improve any bus stop improvements around the schools. In particular, there is a plan, and they did apply. They did not receive the funding, but they have gotten word that there could be a possibility. They're very high on the wait list. So if it does not work out in another community, there's a high probability that we will be funded, or we at least will be in the next round of Safe Routes to School. So this will probably happen, and it will probably mean that we will have more improvements to the bus stop at Cedar Ridge Middle School. It really needs, it's got a sidewalk in front of it. It really probably needs to have the concrete extended behind it to get the kids further off the road, and some other additions to it. So that's what the 5,000's for. If there's any around the grade school or the high school, then we could also add that to it. But it's in particular at Cedar Ridge in the plan. And then there was a legislation change recently that allows us to use this funding to maintain current service if you lose funding. So, or if you're at risk of having to cut. So that used to not be a possibility with this type of funding, but thanks to COVID and the various funding challenges that agencies are having, this OTA, actually myself even, testified to legislators, and they amended STIF to allow us to maintain funds. So that 86,829, there's a reason that number. I'm not going to get into it. It's a long, I don't necessarily think that it's that important for this meeting, but if we were to need funding so that we don't cut any services, it's there. It's basically a placeholder in case we need it. And finally, as you know, I have high hopes of building a driver brake training bathroom area. We're running out of room in this building. We have quite a few drivers now, and I hope when COVID's over, you guys come check it out, because it's pretty lively outside my office in the break room now. There's always 3 or 4 people there, and you know, I don't want to quiet people while they're on break, but I imagine when life gets back to normal and I'm in this office more often, we will have to address how we share the building. But what I'd like to do is create more space, whether that means moving some walls inside here or starting the next building, which is in the operations center master plan. That would obviously be very expensive. And thanks to COVID, that now is $15,000 that I'm putting aside in this plan, but I saved $106,000 the last biennium. So we'll see. I'm gonna try to put some grants out there too, and see if we can get some money to add some space. The drivers really need more space. They need somewhere to have a proper break room. They need somewhere that they can relax, that they can use a restroom, and not be, you know, in this administrative building. And these are all of Clackamas County's projects. Teresa, do you want to just give a quick highlight on what you guys plan to do for the next 2 years?
Sure. So we had a fair-sized amount of carryover funding that was unspent during the last biennium. That was somewhat deliberate because we needed to, at the county level, go through some planning processes to try to determine what some next steps were going to be. That led to things like the transit development plan and some other work that we've done. So one project that's a carryover project is transit hub planning up on Mount Hood. So we had originally planned, we'll probably start that during the current biennium, but we're not going to get it finished because we're almost at the end of the biennium. So it's our hope to kick that project off this summer. We're going to be purchasing a new bus, one new vehicle to kind of stabilize the existing service model. And then we've also got some plans regarding technology upgrades and planning upgrades, specifically looking at dispatch software that can be used by the Transportation Reaching People program, the senior centers, the last mile shuttles, and potentially, if needed, the Mount Hood Express, although we're continuing to partner with Sandy at this point in time. We've got continued funding for the additional runs on the Mount Hood Express and the Villages Shuttle. We do have dollars plugged in to support our senior services, the Transportation Reaching People program, and our partnerships with the senior centers. We really feel that that this is an essential service, and it's a service that operates on an extremely shoestring budget. These services provide rides to people that live outside of, for the most part, outside of transit districts. So they don't have access to Lyft or to some of the other paratransit programs. So it's an important service to allow people to remain in their homes and their communities. Can you scroll for me a little bit, Andy?
Yep,
Thank you.
you got it.
We've got funds in there for staffing. This funds Christina Babcock's position. I think you've all met her so far, and provides us with some administrative capacity to support all of our transit programs. We've got some match dollars in there for replacing buses that are due for replacement. We've got some dollars in there that are based on our transit development plan to look at how we can address gaps in service. So basically that'll be kind of flexible funding that we could potentially, you know, if we wanted to give the money to someone else who wanted to expand service in a certain area or do something like that, we have some opportunities. We do have a fair-sized amount of money that we've rolled into program reserve. Can you scroll down just a little bit, Andy? Again, with the intention of making sure that we have adequate resources to preserve existing services, not just the Mount Hood Express, but also our Transportation Reaching People services and other services, since those really do serve essential functions in their communities. We got money in there for the audit that TriMet is requiring. We've got a couple of miscellaneous categories for some smaller studies and bus stop improvements. So yeah, that's that. On top of that, we also have dollars that we receive from the Regional Connection Program through TriMet that are for projects that are within the TriMet service district. We're using those to fund last mile shuttle programs. So we just finished up an RFP process on that. And we're hoping to, over the next 60 days, we'll be starting up last mile shuttles in Oregon City and in the Clackamas industrial area. So I should have a good report on that by the time how that particular those projects have gone the next time we meet.
Thank you. So still a lot going on. A lot of great things that are coming out of the STIF program and funding. If you don't have any questions, I'm going to roll right into budget. All right. So the main thing I want to talk about with budget, and I do have my budget on here. Well, it looks like I'm going to have to pull, but the main thing that I want to talk about, because our budget is, you know, big, and I don't know how helpful it is for us to look at it or to get that much in the weeds, but I do, let's see, where's my, here it is. I do just want to do a highlight of when we do our budgets here, we highlight what we achieved in the previous biennium and then what our goals are in the next biennium. So I think it's really important to show this board all of the hard work that has gone into the past couple years. And I know that you guys are very aware of everything that was going on behind the scenes as well, switching over to a new contractor, not having the first operations manager work out. The new operations manager, who is very ill at the moment, is great. He's been here for a couple months now, and he interacts very well with the drivers, and he's got a real grasp of what the city and the county's expectations are for our service. So I just want to quickly roll through, and if you guys have questions, please feel free to stop me. But I just want to remind you that we went through, it feels like with COVID, that's all we talk about, and that's like all our brain goes to. But we did complete a transit master plan that was adopted by council in April. We did procure 7 new transit vehicles. So, and that is the number of vehicles that we have in service when we are in peak service. So we have a whole new fleet of vehicles rolling around town. One of those being the new blue trolley that I'm sure you've seen out, although it's not wrapped or doesn't have a license plate. We did complete construction of those darn bus barns out there, and they're working very well. It's really helped us be able to park the vehicles, including the dial-a-ride vehicles, out back and have more space for drivers, especially when they're on break. They used to pull up right here in the front in the main parking lot, and we've stopped them from doing that because there's now open spaces right behind the building that they can still pull in behind the gates, park really close, come in and have a break and go back out. So those are working really well. We renovated the bus wash. It's still a total headache, but we did renovate it. We added the evening runs to 3 routes. We procured bus stop, all new bus stop signs. We fixed some of the solar panels at bus stops. We have a contract, actually, we're working, the contract is currently with our city attorney. So I expect that to be signed very soon to put Wi-Fi on 4 transit vehicles. We have a new bus stop shelter that I hope to put up, probably not in front of Kentucky Fried Chicken, but I'll move it down a little bit and be in front of McDonald's, but in that Safeway shopping area. We got new computers and monitors, not only for administration staff that work for the city, but also for dispatch personnel. We have a new transit tax collection software coming that the IT department has developed specifically for us to work with the finance department's finance software. That should reduce some of the duplication of entries, so save some staff time by having the new transit tax software. We also have a brand new, Muna and I sat through a kickoff meeting today. We have brand new dispatch software through Easy Rides. That should be in place by May with the training of the dispatch personnel, et cetera. And then we secured about $650,000 extra funds from CARES Act for COVID relief. We were able to provide Meals on Wheels service and personnel for 9 months. We secured PPE, installed hand sanitizing stations at every entrance of the ops center and on each vehicle. We installed germ guards in transit vehicles. We increased disinfectant, and et cetera. And Muna is going to show you some of the changes that we've made for COVID here in just a minute, but we also developed a new service enhancement plan for STIF, which you just saw. We also were part of the Vision Around the Mountain plan. We were part of the county's transit development plan. Just so much that we're currently part of. The city is undergoing a TSP, a new TSP update. So for next year, or next 2 years, because our budgets are 2 years, we will improve dial-a-ride services. We're going to add tablets to the dial-a-ride vehicles and have computer-aided dispatch for those services. Let's see. We are going to partner with the county and improve our transit intelligence services. You guys have heard us talk about double map, and we didn't they are not as wonderful as we had hoped in the data collection. It's great for the passenger to know where the buses are. It's pretty reliable for things like that, but the behind the scenes data collection has not been what we anticipated. So we're about to put out an RFP. We're including all of the small transit providers in the county as part of that RFP, see if we can save all of us a little bit of money by going in together. Hopefully we will have an implementation plan at the end of the next 2 years to see if we can go ahead and start that new route from here to Clackamas Town Center. And the plan will hopefully include a timeline and funding sources. I want to continue to explore the capacity plan, which is what I discussed earlier about trying to find more room for the drivers. We will procure another 3 vehicles, 2 of which are from that needs-based act, and the other is a large heavy-duty Gillig, which we will be buying a rehabbed or overhauled vehicle from Complete Coachworks. And then we have been collaborating with all of the Clackamas County small providers in studies to look at e-fares, and also we're hoping to get a discretionary grant that will create an integrated website for transit trip planning and, a one-stop shop for all of the various agencies in the county. Hopefully we will continue all of those collaborative efforts to improve our systems as one seamless system as much as we can. And we will also look to implement route improvements. So in our new transit master plan, there's some marketing strategies that we will probably try to put in place. There's some street improvement projects that I would really like to take a look at and see, at least create a timeline and try to get funding sources to see if we can't make some of the changes recommended in our transit master plan. There's some rerouting of various routes that are suggested and so forth. So I still see a lot of these things as internal improvement processes, which is what I really want us to concentrate on for the next 2 years. We have, we've grown quite a bit and had a lot of changes. And I think it's time for us to really look at how we can operate most efficiently, especially, as administrative staff. Any questions or thoughts about the next 2 years?
I think that's a really great collection of goals. And I like the focus on the kind of internal workings, since we are still continuing to be in a little bit of uncertainty about how things are all shaken out.
Yeah, thank you. It's definitely uncertain times. If you guys want to see the budget, I'm happy to bring it up, or I'm happy to email it out. Just let me know. I'm going to go ahead and let Muna tell you about some of the COVID changes.
Okay, I'm on an attempt to share my screen. I'm kind of new at this part of it, but that's not what I want you to see. Okay, can you guys see my screen? Nope. Not at all, huh? Let me.
Not yet.
Do you have a share screen button at the bottom of your page?
I
If you-
do.
Then you have to select which screen you want to share, and then.
Oh, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Cattail.
My photo bomber or
He's
my Zoom bomber.
Can you guys see now?
beautiful.
No.
No?
No.
Oh,
Do you have did you push the blue share button at the bottom right of, when you push on your document, there's a blue share button at the bottom right?
Oh, you know what? So,
You've got to do 3 clicks. You've got to do the
oh,
share green and then select what you want to share when the pop-up opens up, and then do the share.
thank you, because I had no idea I was supposed to do that. Can you guys see now?
Nope.
No. Okay, apparently,
Do you want to send it to me?
yeah, let me send it to you because apparently I have no idea what I'm doing.
I know there's pictures in it that you probably would like to share.
Yeah, give me just a second here. Andy did give a good highlight of some of the things that we've done to upgrade. And I do want to say that not only does it allow us to have some more permanent health-wise measures, there's been some safety protocols that inadvertently we get to have because of it.
Yeah, there's definitely been improvements to this building in general
So it's
and
really nice.
vehicles.
Absolutely, really nice to. So I just send it to you. So hopefully it'll pop through pretty quick here. And in the meantime, while you're waiting for that, I just want to say we now have a doorbell with a video camera, which enables us to view who's coming prior to them, because we can actually connect it to a phone, view who's coming, make sure they're wearing a mask, and check to see who's coming to the building. So there's a safety advantage as well as a COVID advantage to that. And we can also view, or we also get alerted that people are coming to the building when we're not there. So it's kind of a nice feature. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can you scroll down a little? Yeah.
Oh, there's our doorbell.
There it is. And it's connected to our phones, also to Public Works phones, so that they know what's going on in our building. And then as you enter the building, we have sanitizing stations now, sign-in sheets at the door entryways, and our friendly little bear, the visual reminder of the COVID precautions. You can keep going. And then of course we have other notifications throughout the building, just to remind people to wear your mask, stay apart, all those kinds, if you have symptoms, all those kinds of things. And then in the bathrooms, we have installed touchless sensor toilets and sinks, and we are in the process of getting the soap dispensers and a towel dispenser, so that when we do open up, there's a lot of less touching of things, and also for the staff. We are cleaning the high touch surfaces within the building at least once a day, and this is one of our best cleaners. She literally sanitizes everything, high touch or not. So she happened to be cleaning this morning when I was trying to gather pictures, so that's Kathy. And then at the bus shelters, the drivers are wiping down all the touch surfaces at each end of their route. And then we have other drivers, staff going out and spraying the shelters. You can see that is Harriet with one of the spray gun that we have. And that is an electrostatic sprayer that just kind of clings to whatever you spray it on and keeps it clean. And then we use that also to spray down the buses every night. And then as we move on to the protective barriers, which Nancy did all the research to get those for us, and they are beautiful. And as you can see, hopefully through the pictures, that's the door when it's shut, the door that they are able to open, and the nice latch that's a safety feature for our drivers, because someone cannot come from the other side and open it. It's got a couple of safety locks. Yeah, if you see, there's not only the latch, but a secondary latch in red that protects them. Not that we have any issues, but it's just a good feature, and it's always nice to make people feel secure. So And then we have in the next screen, which is coming, what we will be installing in the Gilligs. It's a little different, but it also has a latch and a latch to enable it to open up. And I apologize, I didn't take pictures of the county buses. Theirs are slightly different, but they do have also a same feature where the driver has the ability to control when he or she opens the door or not. So, and that's that. And then as far as passengers go, we also want to make sure, of course, that our riders are safe. We have equipped our buses with the hand sanitizers. They are down low so that if you're in a wheelchair or you're a young person, you can access them. And then, of course, we continue with the mask requirements. And we placed social distancing stickers to make sure that people sit where they should. That also enables the driver to know when he's at capacity, he or she, I apologize, he or she is at capacity. So, and then is there one more, I think, or is that the last one?
Last one.
Okay, so those are the things that we've done to make changes. As I said, they have not only enabled us to provide some protection against airborne illness, but also provide some of those things that will give us more security. We are opening up April 5th. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes.
We will remain locked as we have that doorbell until such time as we start selling our tickets again. We don't get a lot of foot traffic, so that's our plan. And if anybody has any questions, otherwise I'll turn it back over to Andy.
Thank you, Muna, and thank you, Nancy. That is not easy, trying to get the various quotes and comparing the materials and which is a better bang for our buck. And she also got information. We will be upgrading the HEPA filter systems on our buses as well. We have the pricing, but I think there's a couple more steps before we can pull that trigger, but that will be happening on all the buses as well. And yes, the city is opening April 5th. And I also want to highlight, as we can log off after this, that we have officially operated with COVID for a year and had 0 COVID cases in this department. Yeah, so 2 transit services made it through an entire year without COVID. And I can tell you other departments weren't as lucky. So I truly attribute that to we were very quick to jump on putting guards up in buses and allowing mask. If you remember in the beginning, they said not to wear mask, but we allowed the drivers to wear masks if they felt like they would be protected wearing them. Ben really did a great job of putting protocol in place of disinfecting touch surfaces at the end of every run, etc. And we did that very early on. So very proud that we had no COVID. I hope it stays away.
Yeah, and let's keep it that way.
All right, that is, I think that covers all my updates. If anybody has questions or comments before we sign off.
Wow.
Everybody's ready to go be Irish for a little while.
We're going to get a motion to adjourn the meeting at 6:55.
Second.
Thank you, Chris. Any opposition? Okay, pass unanimously. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you for your great work and all that you're doing for our communities and overall.
Good to see everybody. Have a good night.
Yes,
You
indeed.
too.
It was good to see everyone.
Take care.